Okay, hello and welcome to episode 9 of Shit I Make My Family Watch, a podcast where I make my family and friends watch crappy horror and sci-fi movies so you don't have to. I'm your host, Desiree, and joining me today is author Dev Solovey. Welcome, Dev.
Hey, what's up?
Together, we're going to give you a breakdown of the storyline of this piece of crap as best we can, and then rate these movies on the shit scale of 1 to 5, 1 being only a little shitty and 5 being the worst pile of crap we've ever seen in our lives. Today's piece of crap was the 1987 release of Video Violence. And we are going to spoil this, so if this is something you'd like to watch, you should probably stop now. And if not, go ahead. I did not take any notes except for one, and it was just one line in the beginning that I thought was worth watching the whole movie for. Other than that, it sucked. And it was my turnoffs are hairy women and finding dead mice in my soda bottoms.
Yeah,
So from what I could gather, this movie was like a movie inside of a movie inside of a movie. And this
I
is a number
fucking hate.
two.
I fucking hate this movie, man. I mean, I love it, but like, I hate it. How do I parse my feelings on this film? Like, summarize. It's essentially it's kind of a variety show of just like these two hosts who are killers, showing different clips of snuff films. And then there's like little commercials in between, but they're also made for the movie. There was a soundtrack that was made for the movie. I don't know how they did all this with what looked like a $2 budget. And it's a sequel to just a regular ass indie horror movie. Like, it's not this weird. They just decided to make the sequel this weird for some reason. You can watch the two independently of each other because I tried watching the first one just to get some context, and no context could be gained. It's a completely different story.
Okay.
So,
I did like their every time they do a cut scene from like a viewer clip to a commercial or whatever, and it would say when cable is not enough.
yeah,
Was it WGOR?
yeah, God.
And I didn't mind the viewer clips as I mean it was interesting, I guess, for the time period and the filming. I was not a big fan of any of the scenes with the main two guys. Like
Yeah,
it was very
they
like
kind of suck.
sexist and not even in a fun way.
Yeah,
I'm still
no.
processing that
I
one.
would say the one with them in it that I'm able to appreciate it, and even then I've got my issues with it, but I'll get into that later, is the one where they've got that gal in the chair and they cut open her arm and then they
Hmm.
manipulate her tendons to give the camera the middle finger. Uh,
Hmm.
Even though it was poorly acted, I thought that was really creative, and it was the one scene that like kind of squicked me out, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
what they call it, the puppet master or something like that. Was
Puppet,
the
something or other. Yeah, I don't know. But
I
yeah,
like the piano player guy every few
oh
seconds.
yeah,
He'd
he
be
was the
like,
best character in the movie.
"Yeah, that was it."
Yeah, I mean, I did take notes and I watched it twice. I can give you
Your
kind of my
second
background as to
favorite.
how I found it too, if you want.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, so it started with a different podcast that I listened to. They started talking about this film, and I paused it immediately because I was like, I got to watch this for myself because it sounded like something I would love. And then I pull it up on Tubi and I see like the preview screenshots, and I'm like, oh no, I'm sending this to Desiree. I like
It
sent it.
looked cool. Like if you're just looking at the shots or the cover of it, that would look like something I would watch. This was
Yeah,
pretty bad.
yeah, no, this one was, yeah, it looked like it was some sort of like college film project, filmed in the fucking late 80s. But yeah, I got curious and I watched it anyway, and I watched it with a friend of mine, and both of us were just in hell the entire time we were watching it. I mean, it got some genuine laughs out of me, but the thing that pisses me off about it is that it's so close to being something I would absolutely love. Like, it's
Hmm.
so close to being
Hmm.
really really good, but it fumbles in some really specific ways. And the problem with like the fact that they half-assed certain scenes in this is that when you half-ass a scene, you don't get a scene that's half as good. You get a complete wreck. Like, you
Hmm.
have to whole ass everything you do, whether it's film or it's writing or it's what have you. Like you have to whole ass it, or people, it's gonna be really bad. Like I don't know what to tell. I don't know. I mean, how did you plan on summarizing this movie? Because it's a little hard to summarize.
Uh, I was trying to remember the separate clips, but the only ones that really stood out to me was the like caterpillar creature
Oh,
one with like a Christmas
Silver.
present. And I thought that was fun until it like barfs on the kid and then she's like, it's washable. Oh, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that's great. And then the the lemonade one with the he's a
Oh
butcher, I
yeah,
think, but he's got
Deli
like a secret
Dicks.
lemonade.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kind of lost track of what was supposed to be a viewer clip and what was supposed to be like
Yeah.
part of their show.
Yeah, they kind of mix together between the viewer snuff films versus the commercials, but I
Yeah.
think the order it went in. Okay, I think I can basically summarize this, but it starts out with a regular news broadcast of this guy explaining that these two murderers, Howard and Eli, are hijacking broadcasts to show their own show, which is just a variety show collection of um, snuff films submitted by
Mm.
viewers. So then you get, I think it's Eli is the one with the mustache. He comes out and gives some kind of like talk show monologue because they hijack the broadcast. And they have a piano player, and then there's Howard as the other host. And after he does his
Any of that.
fucking weird, stupid monologue, it wasn't fishy. I think I wrote down one of the jokes so I can give listeners an idea of like the caliber of humor we're dealing with here.
Oh, was it the nun one? Because that's the one that got me.
It might have been. Let me see. Where is it? Oh no, you know what? It opened with a prologue of like some people filming what looked like a Dracula movie, except
Yeah.
this gal is supposed to like eat Dracula's heart. Then she's like, "This shit's disgusting. I don't want to do this." And then the director's like, "Maybe we should give you some motivation." And then they actually like carve out her heart and kill her. I have no idea how that was relevant. Uh,
Yeah, and then it went to the part where they were like taking over the
yeah,
airwaves, and
exactly. Yeah, reasons I
so
hate
that was kind of
prologues.
unnecessary.
It takes a lot to make me love a prologue. A lot of especially indie authors seem to use them, and like if that's what appeals to you, fine. But I just prefer to start a story where it starts. So already I'm just like, what's this about? I mean, the guys who made this are very self-aware of like splatter tropes and tropes in media in general. So maybe it was an attempt to poke fun at that. I have no idea.
I
Uh,
I got that, but like the part that really bothered me is they were rehashing the same like we're gonna we're gonna kill this half naked woman after
yeah,
we like verbally demean her and call her stupid. Then we're gonna kill her. Oh, it's funny. And then the next clip is
yeah,
essentially the same thing in a different like, okay, I get it. The only
yeah.
thing that really like I had to think about for a second whether it bothered me or not was was it like a three
The
girls together
college
and they
girls.
decide they want to kill somebody?
I have a million things to say about that sketch. It makes me so angry. But I did find one of the jokes he says. It's like the one he opens his monologue with. He says, "You know, a funny thing happened to me last week. I was out hunting with my buddy Lester when out from behind a tree jumps this beautiful babe, buck ass naked. I went up to her and I says, 'Are you game?' She goes, 'Sure.' So Lester shot her." And that's the joke.
I didn't
So
hear that
that's
one.
kind of a prelude to the sort of content we're going to be seeing here. But from there, we did have one sketch that didn't revolve around some gal taking her top off and then getting murdered, which was this retired sheriff who was just like, man, I wish I could just kill criminals over and over again. So I made my own electric chair, and then they fried
Oh
some
yeah,
guy.
I forgot about that one. Him and his wife built the homemade
Yeah,
electric chair. That was actually my favorite one, just for
that
the
one's the
end of
best
that.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the funniest for sure. Because the wife and the former sheriff, they overact it, but in a way that's like the perfect amount of overacting for this kind of sketch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which is great. My one thing is that they got like an animatronic head for that
Hmm.
guy. And like, so they could afford all that, but they couldn't afford to whole ass the college girl sketch, which I think was the next one. That one pissed me off. Pissed me off so much. Because again, they came so close. Like they're self-aware of the fact that they're using a very common trope in horror in the 80s, which is just exploitation of women, getting them half naked and then murdering them. And so they're like, oh, let's do a gender bend of this. Let's have these girls objectify this guy and then kill him. But they just, for whatever reason, they didn't like show the kill at the end. It took too long. The buildup took way too long. The scene like took forever. And then at the end, they kill this guy, but they don't even show him getting stabbed or anything. It's just these three gals standing over the camera, and there's like blood splatters. I'm like, how did they get a whole ass animatronic dude for the other sketch, but they couldn't bother to get like a body, you know, and like
Fake, well,
actually.
they had a little bit of fake blood.
Yeah. But like that's it. Like, and I was talking with the friend that I watched this with, and the problem and like the reason they couldn't whole ass it, hear me out here. They're just not gay enough. Like they're not gay. Like they don't know how to objectify men is the problem. Like they're trying to subvert the trope of objectifying women in horror that was very prevalent, but they can't. Like they had to no homo themselves at the last minute because they have these girls talking in the beginning like, let's chop his dick off, you know. And then I'm like, okay, if you're gonna show titties, show him chopping the dick off. Like what? You have to last it, otherwise the point completely falls flat. It could have been like a really awesome subversion if they hadn't fucking no homoed out of there at the last minute.
Just or like, if they had just maybe brought in a woman into the writing team and been like, hey, here's our idea, any suggestions?
Literally just hire a male stripper, just get an actual one.
The pizza guy first, he was like, no, thank you. And he was like ready to go. And I was like, that's nice. That's wholesome. And they were like, no, come back. And they really had to talk him into it. Which I thought was very strange.
Well, I mean, this whole fucking movie.
Yeah, definitely.
This whole fucking movie.
Yeah, that one made me mad. I didn't like that scene. And also, I've never sat around in my underwear with any lady friends, but that might be just me. Like, I feel like most people don't just hang out in their underwear all the time.
Yeah, unless you're like a hippie or something like that. Yeah, no, like I said, they're just ask one gay guy, ask one woman, just like
bring in anybody besides those two dudes who wrote this.
Yeah, well, the director was actually the original newscaster, the one with the beard. The two guys, they were in the previous film. They played the killers in the previous film. But the one guy who played Eli, the one with the mustache, I looked at the credits, and he also wrote the lyrics for the song that was composed for the film at the very end, which, interesting.
I listened to it.
Yeah. I think the director of the film is also, he primarily does stage plays, which I think is why the acting was a little bizarre. Because they're more used to stage acting. That, like, I think this was a bunch of theater kids putting something together over the weekend, basically.
But they're all like 40 and 50, so you can't really call them theater kids anymore.
That's theater like adults, I guess.
Yeah. Theater boomers, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably are that age, actually. But yeah, and then how does it end? The ending pissed me off a lot. That's the other thing that pissed me off, because they get done with these sketches, they stop rolling the cameras, and they say the show's over, but then you get to see like the behind the scenes. And so they have this, the gal that they had on the show who they've been tormenting this entire time, she starts ranting. She gets up and she's like, this show fucking sucks, I hate it. And she goes off, and as she's doing it, she starts tearing off like all of the bandages and stuff like that, and you find out that they didn't really cut off her thumbs, they didn't really pull out her eyeball, and the clever bit of where they manipulate her tendons, she pulls that off her arm, so they completely undercut it. It meant fucking nothing. Like you had one really interesting idea and you completely ruined it by saying, actually this shit's fake, it's all fake. Like, fuck you.
Well, and that they did it just so they could rehash the scene that they started off the whole movie with, basically.
Yeah. And then the last part also, they have a tie back to the previous film where it's like victims from the previous film send them a tape saying, "Oh, we got patched together with surgery, and now we're gonna come kill you with a gun and a chainsaw." And then they break down the door with exactly. But then it's not even them either. They can't even whole ass that either.
Yeah.
Because the people come in and they tear off their masks and like, actually, we're all friends and nobody gets killed except for Gordon. And like, it was so stupid. I hated the ending so much. It made me so angry.
If you had like stopped it after the sorority chick scene stabbing that guy, you probably could have cobbled together an ending there and made it like a, 1980s B movie.
Yeah.
And it would have been like, okay. But the
Yeah,
fact
I think
that driving home that, but we're going to use this woman and then we're going to kill her. And it's actually, not real, but then we're going to kill her again for reals this time.
Yeah, because once she's done ranting, one of them comes behind her and breaks her neck. So, like, okay.
Yeah, I get it.
I
real,
did.
But it's not real.
I did think the Deli Dix one was pretty funny, even though it was definitely just let's get a woman and abuse her. But it was like this guy who ran a lemonade stand, and he also came up with like awful kitchen gadgets that were supposed to just mutilate people. And so he tries this one that's supposed to chop off your fingers, but it breaks. It doesn't even fucking work. And then he's like, you put him on a sandwich, and it's like, okay. I think that might have been intentional though. I think it was supposed to break. I don't think it was supposed to actually work. Either way, it was funny to me that it didn't. It was unexpected,
I was trying to figure out his lemonade thing where he like sticks the drain in her chest and he's like, this is the secret ingredient in my and I'm like, but your lemonade's yellow.
Yeah.
And there's blood. Like, how does that work? I don't know. And then if I get another, what did he say? If I get another shop assistant, we'll have another episode next week.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I did really enjoy is because a lot of my introduction to extreme horror was things like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac or Lenore, or I was really into Hellraiser comics when I was a kid. And so like a lot of the sense of humor, especially that Jonan Vasquez has, it is like very reminiscent of this, so this is kind of like, it's kind of seeing where the roots of that come from. And that was fascinating to me. I found that interesting. Like I said, it was close to being like really enjoyable. But it just has some major fucking flaws. Honestly, even the bad acting could have been charming if it were just like, I don't know. Again, if they had just been able to whole ass it,
It kind of makes me like, now that we've talked about it, it reminds me of that new one. We just watched it. The Devil. It's like the new talk show one where it's about the show in the 70s and it's filmed in like that 70s quality. And then he brings on a possessed girl. I can't remember the name of it.
Send it to me once you remember, because that sounds like
it's a good one. It's like what it wanted to be, but it wasn't. I mean, that one wasn't funny. Now I can't remember the name. So
I will say there were a couple of parts that did get a laugh out of me, and one of them was just the fucking worst line delivery from Eli when their two like previous victims bust down the door or whatever, and the curtain just magically falls on its own. You can see it getting pulled. Anyway, and then the guy who plays Eli stands up and he's like, "Shit, I don't fucking believe this." It was like the worst delivery.
They let him ad-lib it.
Yeah.
Like, just go with what you feel right there.
Yeah, no, it's just, God, it was so... this might be my new favorite bad movie, but it also makes me so fucking angry. Like, it sucks. I'm
not sure if it's worth a second watch, but there was like, just if you could isolate those few scenes that were pretty fun, like the electric chair one.
Yeah.
I sat there watching it. I was like, oh, they got to be done with it soon. Eyeball pops out. And I'm like, oh, it's got to be done soon. And then his head explodes. And I was like, okay.
Honestly, when his eyeballs popped out, that got a laugh out of me. I cracked up the first time I watched that.
That was the top scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, no, it's like the best part. They did have another one where it was like this gal who went into this film store, and they tell her in order for her to rent a VCR, she needs to give them a face print, whatever that means. And then they
That's
just
right.
wrap her head in saran wrap and shrink wrap her head until she suffocates. And like all the people in the video store are like really into it as they're watching it happen. It's just, I don't know.
It was very out of place. I mean,
I think it was an advertisement too, because it said something about the video shop at the end. Oh, there was one bit that I thought was kind of clever too, where they did the advertisement for their like snuff compilation, and they had a bunch of like random ass titles scrolling down the screen for way too long, but behind it was just the same shot of a woman getting killed in the shower over and over again, except it was a different maniac from a different slasher film every time. So like it was the same lead up, the same woman, but then first it was like Freddy Krueger, and it was Jason, then it was Mike Myers. And I think it was finally around the time when Norman Bates comes in, the gal is just getting tired of getting killed in the shower over and over again. So she pulls out a gun and shoots.
That's at the end.
That was a good bit. See, close to being good.
But the bad parts make it not worth it. Like,
yeah.
I can't forgive them that.
Exactly. It's very much one of those ones that like, it's far more fun to watch with friends when you're high than it is to like watch it on your own at 4:00 in the afternoon the way I did yesterday. So
yeah, not nearly as entertaining. What would you rate this one?
God, I'm torn between a 4 and a 5. I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5.
I think that's higher than what you rated
House of the Dead.
Yeah. You'd
House
rather watch
I rated
House
3.
of the Dead.
I would rather watch House of the Dead.
I think I'd rather watch this one than House of the Dead, but I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was really stupid. And I still like, it was like the worst Inception movie within a movie within a movie within a storyline. Just kidding. Here's the real storyline, but it's actually what you thought it was the first time. Like if they had just picked one or cut it off 20 minutes early, I think it would have been more like the like Army of Darkness kind of shtick that would have been like more entertaining.
Yeah, they should have just ended it when the show ended. I felt personally attacked by that ending because like so I'm going on 30, right? But like I spent ages 15 to 25 during the 2010s. And during the 2010s, fourth wall breaks were just shorthand for humor. Like, especially after like everything just became Joss Whedon pilled for a hot minute. And like there was that self-awareness kind of fourth wall breaking, quippy writing that just has not aged well. But it was like the standard for everything at the time. And like the fact that like my most prolific creative years were within that time period, like poisoned my brain for a while. Like I just, being part of that culture just poisoned me into thinking that irony and fourth wall breaks is funny. And so I've been guilty of this shit. And I've had to learn not to be guilty of it. And so it made me cringe watching it because I was just like, I've done this exact thing and I've learned better and these guys never did, even though this was in the 80s. Was this still shorthand for humor in the 80s? Oh my God, I like catastrophized about it.
Sometimes it works though. I don't think it should be completely written off. It just shouldn't be relied upon for your entire 120 minute, whatever. Actually, I think it was like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like if you have to have a fourth wall break, it has to be good. Yeah. It has to be good because if you half-ass it, it's not like if you get half of a puppy, it's not half as cute. It's a fucking mess, is what you got. Like that's like I'm sorry.
The weirdest analogy I've ever heard for half-assing something. I don't want half.
You can't half-ass a fourth wall break. You can't do it. You can't use it as shorthand for humor. It has to be a genuinely good gag, and I've seen it done as a genuinely good gag.
Sure.
But it's just. Yeah, I felt personally attacked. That's all.
I still think the best clip was probably either the caterpillar one that had, I don't know if it was a caterpillar or like a goblin.
Wilbur, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty clever for how short it was. But other
Yeah,
than
it
that,
was also like so out of place with everything else.
yeah,
Like the rest of it was just like, just fucking weird snuff films.
basically.
But like this one particular commercial, it starts out and it's like this kid at Christmas and he opens up this box and there's this just fucking slug lizard furry creature with like a bunch of sharp teeth. And the kid goes, "Oh my god, it's Wilbur!" And his mom's all happy to see him opening up this present. He takes Wilbur out and it like bites the kid's neck, just starts bleeding. And he passes out, and it's like, "Get one for Christmas this year." Like,
don't worry, it's washable.
yeah. And then Wilbur was credited as being played by himself in the credits.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I watched the credits because I wanted to see, like, I just wanted to see who all was involved in the process and how small their fucking budget was.
I feel like they probably put a lot of Easter eggs in there. I looked it up on, I did a quick scan to see if it was on Wikipedia, and the first one is, not the second one, but they said the budget for the first one was $6. That's what it says in Wikipedia. And I was like, is that accurate? Like, or did somebody just put that in to be funny and nobody's corrected it yet? But I feel like it could be. I feel like this is like a film where everybody told his friends what he was doing, and they're like, yeah, we're going to donate our time and effort into this. And therefore, production cost was close to zero.
That's kind of the vibe that the first one has, too. I got through about 10 minutes of it, and then I couldn't take it anymore.
I don't know that I will watch the first one with how this one went.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Video
I had never even heard of
is
it.
worth a watch if you like weird shit. If you like just like watching weird bad shit and like exposing your eyeballs to that, then like go for it. Fine, whatever. I've read worse on the internet. Like this isn't the worst shit I've ever seen, but
pretty close. 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah. It's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's the worst film. Actually, maybe I'll knock it down to a 4 because I did enjoy quite a lot of it. It's just that like those few parts made me so mad that I forgot I enjoyed a lot of it.
Yeah, not till you're rehashing it later do you realize you're like, okay, I was okay with that scene.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move on from that movie. Unless you have anything else you'd like to add that you enjoyed, because
no, just go watch it. It sucks.
It's
an experience unlike any other you will ever have from watching a film.
I kept sitting here on my couch watching it, and I was working on something else, and I'd look up and be like, and then go back, and like it was hard.
Yeah, you'll never experience anything else like it. I don't think there'll ever be another film like this.
You're not supposed to. Well, more exciting is the how many days has it been now since your book dropped?
2
days. Yeah, look, I got my paperback copy.
Oh, hey, you got a paperback copy.
Right as I finished the ebook copy, and I was like, perfect. So
awesome.
I do like having it in my hands because the back cover art is something that you don't get to see when you have the ebook. But
yeah,
it's really cool. And so I had a few questions for you in regards to your new release. I was going to read your blurb real quick here. Actually, I'm going to let you do it. Do you have it?
Yeah, 1 second. Oh, I thought Thaddeus Morozov's sister tries to sacrifice him to a dark god, but she doesn't quite finish the job. As he fights for his life in a medically induced coma, the dark god puts him through a gauntlet of nightmares, each more horrific than the last. He has help from the surgeons trying to piece him back together, as well as a mysterious protector who appears in the form of a sparrow. But if he loses, the sacrifice will be complete. Violent, edgy, and unabashedly queer, Fever Dreams is the debut splatterpunk novella from indie horror author Dev Salovey. It is a biting commentary on the trans moral panic, explored through the eyes of a transgender boy who will fight tooth and nail to survive, with plenty of blood and gore spilled along the way. So that is the synopsis and blurb on the back.
And last time we looked, it was sitting at number 69.
69,
in
nice.
The top 100 of, actually, I don't even know what category it was.
It was in LGBT horror.
Oh, okay. They have their own category. That's cool.
Yeah, I've been trying to like not gonna lie, I've been trying to like game the Amazon algorithm by like
Perfect.
putting my book and then Chuck Tingle's latest release in my cart and back out again, and then my
Does it work?
I'm told that works on YouTube, so I just tried it on Amazon. I think it was at number 30 last time I checked, actually, so maybe it does. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, so worth trying out. But also, like, LGBT horror is a pretty niche category, and I
Mhm.
think that's why it's kind of working, because the more niche you can like make yourself, the more likely you are to find an audience, because there's people looking for your specific thing, you know.
Mhm.
If that, I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does, yeah.
yeah,
However
yeah,
you can do it is great. Get up there, man.
yeah, exactly.
So what inspired you to write this book? That's a very broad question, but
That is a very broad question. A lot of things. I mean, it's worth noting that I'm not the kind of person who actually sticks to a genre. Excuse me. Um, but I wanted to do horror after reading the most recent installment of the John Dies at the End series, and I forget how I came to the conclusion of nightmares. But I think part of it was because I originally wanted it to be more of a horror comedy, and very few people talk about like the weirdness that comes in nightmares. Like sometimes it's not scary when you talk about it outwardly, but like in the dream, it's really scary, or
Mhm.
you just see some weird shit. Um, you know, and I think the original working title was NyQuil Dreams for that reason too, because I was getting like weird dreams. NyQuil. Um, but yes, I ended up writing down, just like brainstorming a whole list of like all the weird dreams and nightmares that I'd had, and most of them didn't make the final cut. Um, there were two that were the John Oliver chapter. That's based on one of the funniest dreams I've ever had.
I like that. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah. The original dream that was based on I might have had when I had COVID the first time around. I don't actually like Last Week Tonight all that much. I mean, it's okay, and like I admire the kind of communication that John Oliver is doing. But my dad, he used to live with me, and he loved Last Week Tonight. So there was like a solid week where that was all that was on the TV all the
Mm.
time, and so I had like this structure of an episode of Last Week Tonight just permanently etched into my brain. And then like a year down the road, I have a dream about it. And I don't remember what the episode was about, but it ends with like the fucking grossest joke I've ever heard in my life, where John Oliver said, I think he said like, "So tonight we got Dane Cook to eat my ass on a water slide," and I laughed so hard I woke up. It was the dumbest shit, but it sticks in my head for how dumb it was, because I like wake up and I'm all groggy and I'm like, I gotta text my group chat about this.
Uh,
It's the worst, the fucking worst. But like I knew I had to use that. Um, I did also have one where Tom Scott dead named me. That's a real thing that happened. I think I was watching one of his videos like right before going to bed. But yeah, I mean there were other elements too in the chapter where he's flipping through videos. He mentioned something about Joe Biden's anime clown girlfriend. That's a dream I had.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that one, it wasn't, I don't remember much about it other than like Joe Biden was giving a speech and he goes, "Isn't that right, honey?" And it's like an anime clown girl. And she's like, "Yes, dear." And they like walk off stage. It was really weird. But yeah, like nobody talks about like the weird shit in dreams, right? And so I kind of wanted to incorporate some of that, um, but after a while, like the story changed, right? Like there was no real way to implement this humorous stuff anymore, and it just didn't serve the story to make it a comedy. So I ended up making it more of a serious thing. Um, I put it on the back burner for a while because I wrote like a small outline and a little bit of a character sketch for the main character Thaddeus, and I put it on the back burner because I was busy working on a much larger manuscript. And I decided, I wanted to finish that one first, and then I'd do this one for NaNoWriMo. So I wrote most of Fever Dreams during NaNoWriMo.
Mm.
And then by, I want to say like December of 2023, that's when I finished it. And I think it was around that time that I watched this one YouTube sketch. It was like an indie animated thing about a trans guy, but this guy was just so fucking miserable and like angsting about how he hadn't gotten top surgery yet.
Mhm.
And I was just like, it was so annoying I couldn't watch the rest of it. because I mean, I'm sure I probably talked about this on the last episode I was at, but I really hate that like a lot of representation of trans people is like them being miserable and hating their bodies all the time. Drives me insane.
Yeah.
So I decided to switch gears and make this more of a statement piece. Make it more of a like I want to make a point about having trans main characters who kick ass, and so that's how you get Thaddeus, who has this attitude, shall we say, who he's overly confident to the point where he's willing to challenge this dark god to a fist fight with fully believing that he could win. Just completely overly confident, and that kind of attitude is what gets him through it when most other people wouldn't survive this, I don't think. So yeah, he's definitely troubled. Also, there's another thing I've noticed, not so much now, but in the past with discourse, is that like people talk about good queer rep or bad queer rep, and what they mean is we want good guys only. We don't want queer villains, or we don't want troubled people who are morally gray. And I always thought that was stupid because like queer people are people, and not all people are good, right? Some of them are going to be assholes, and like you can have a a character who is LGBT who isn't like a perfect paragon of moral purity, and so part of Thaddeus's attitude also comes from the fact that he's a low grade sociopath. And he knows that his words can be hurtful or come off blunt or kind of violent, and he doesn't care. And I think that's another reason why he can kind of get through this, is because it doesn't really matter to him what these other entities in his dreams are doing. It's not going to intimidate him, and he's willing to fight back about them because he's got this sort of this tendency to be aggressive, and it like works in his favor a couple of times. So yeah. No, he admittedly, I did a lot of the research for writing a sociopathic character by asking a friend who is a sociopath and who is also a trans guy. And his perspective was really helpful in a lot of cases. The weirdest conversation I've ever had with him is I asked him, like, so how do you react when you see like gore or like dead bodies or whatever? And he's just like, well, usually I'm pretty indifferent if I'm in like a good mood, but if I'm in a bad mood, I get really interested because like they're hurting and that feels great because I'm hurting too. And I'm like, terrifying. Like, all right, cool. But yeah, he does it's kind of the same thing that Thaddeus does at the end. It's kind of talked about too, where he gets his sort of sociopathic urges out by bullying transphobes on Twitter, and that's the compromise he makes with himself. He's very self-aware about it. Not all cluster B personality disorders, or people with those, I should say, are as self-aware. So he was an invaluable source of information on that. And although some of Thaddeus's like struggles with mental illness, those are based on some of my own experiences. The scene in the mental hospital, for example, that's partially based on my own experience. Although the Play-Doh nurses, like where their faces are all flattened, that's based on a weird dream I had, for sure.
What character in there do you relate to the most, and which ones are the hardest for you to write? Or if any, because I've written books where I don't relate to anybody. So,
I mean, I guess I would relate mostly to Thaddeus, but a lot of that is just because I put a lot of my own experiences being a trans guy and having been in the behavioral health system, into his history. I don't know that I'd be able to answer like what character was hardest for me to write, because for the most part, it is just Thaddeus kind of trapped in his dreams. There's not really an extended cast that much. Perhaps Masha, I would say, his sister, Masha. I say that because of the chapter where she kills their family cat. That was the hardest for me to write.
Yeah, that was a rough one.
When I say you have to whole ass it, I mean you do have to whole ass it. That to me was really tough to write because animal cruelty is something I care very deeply about. it brought up a lot of trauma for me because my last dog passed away too soon in a way that was neither peaceful nor painless, and the veterinarians I brought him to extorted me and couldn't even save him. And so after that, I felt very strongly about animal cruelty. I always have, but I felt even more strongly about it. And so writing that chapter was kind of exposure therapy for me. I was avoiding it for a while. Like I avoided it for a couple of days, but because it was Nano and I was desperate for word count, I realized I had to dive into it. And like by the time I was done writing that chapter, I was like actually sobbing, grown ass man sobbing over his keyboard. Like, yeah, no, it was.
How you know it's a good one?
Yeah, it was very hard for me, but I'm glad I did it because I did get some level of catharsis from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not so much in having the family pet, having Masha murder it, but in having her get payback for it. Because she does get payback for it in one way or another. But yeah, it's like, you know, I had given Thaddeus this character trait of caring a lot about animal cruelty because that is actually something that me and the friend that I chatted with about this both care deeply about. Him, you know, surprising for a sociopath, he actually cares quite a lot about animal cruelty. He doesn't tolerate it. And so I figured it was, you know, a believable enough sort of character trait to give to Thaddeus. But, you know, then a lot of that comes from his backstory of Masha being a fucking junior serial killer and killing animals. And then it's like, well, if I've given him this character trait, I can't just say it and not show it, you know?
Right.
It's like if you made a character who was blind, but still told the story with visual description, or like, if you made a character who was a sex worker but never actually showed them like doing sex work, you know, like it's again the theme of the episode, you have to whole ass it. So it was
supposed to be a show, not tell. That's what they always are. The editors are always saying.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
That kind of segues into my next question, which was what scenes were the hardest for you to write? So it sounds like obviously that one was pretty difficult.
Yeah, that one was hard. Chapter 9 with Tom Scott in it, that one was one of the hardest too. Not because it was like hard for me emotionally, but because it was the chapter that needed the most revision. There was also the scene where this one's honestly kind of funny. He's out in the cold searching for some medication in his dad's workshop. That one was hard for me to write because I've lived in Arizona all my life. And I don't actually know what cold is like. Like I can't fathom below freezing temperatures because never in my life have I been in below freezing temperatures, like at all. The coldest it's ever gotten here was like 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe that's below freezing, I guess. But that was like once in my entire life.
Right.
Yeah, and usually it's at night when I'm asleep. So I have no idea. I have no frame of reference for it. So when I wrote it, I made it a little too quick because I didn't know what details to include. And my editor, Carrie, who is just amazing, incredible, she pointed out that it felt a little rushed. And so I actually had to go to my friends from like the Midwest or whatever and ask them, hey, what's cold like? Like, what's it like to be cold?
You could have just found a fridge to go stand in for a minute.
Oh, no. The fridges don't even, like, I don't know. It gets hot enough here, the fridges stop working. But I don't know. It was, that was hard for me just because of my lack of knowledge. And that's something I've learned in writing a lot of different things, is having lived here in this extremely unique climate zone for all of my life. I don't know what anything else is like. You know, having to ask my friends what snow is like because I've only seen it twice or 3 times or something like that. So it's just kind of like, yeah, that's just a lack of knowledge on my part. But yeah, those are the hardest to write, I would say.
Tell us a little bit about the concept for the cover art that you have on your novel.
So the cover is the Dark God, the antagonist, the Antler Man. And it's Thaddeus kind of like, you know, facing him as the Antler Man looms over him. And I'll admit I didn't have a very clear image of what he looked like in my head before speaking to my artist about it. The artist that I worked with for the cover art is a guy named Ryan Miller. He and I have collaborated before on Webtoon. Um, I found him through the webtoon Bounties with Teeth, which he does, and we found out we were like fans of each other's work, which was just cool that it worked out that way. So he's done some guest episodes for me, and I asked him to do the cover for this because I knew I wanted the Antlerman to be on it, and he's really good at creature design. So yeah, I kind of talked with him. We brainstormed about it, and we sort of came up with this idea of the Antlerman kind of looming over Thaddeus, but Thaddeus still having this kind of like his fist clenched, facing him head on. So yeah, he did more justice. He clarified the image of the Antlerman in my mind just by drawing this, which was really cool. And then the Sparrow was a little harder to pin down. I didn't, because he was constantly behind Thaddeus the whole time, staying out of view. I didn't really have much of a I didn't have much of a clear image of what it would look like, but I did at some point include some description of him right at the very end. And we kind of worked off of that as well. And for the color palette, given that sparrows tend to be kind of a copper or rust color, I talked with Ryan and I said maybe like some kind of copper patina sort of color with a, different shades in there and stuff like that. And again, he just knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I like I have to say this one is very eye-catching. Is my favorite. I do like the front cover, but the back cover was a pleasant surprise when I pulled it out of there. So this one is available on Amazon, and you have it on anything else?
What?
Or is it on Godless or any of the other little platforms?
Yeah, it's on Godless. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to make sure I link that as well. Godless, Amazon. Is there anything else you want to share about the book? I know we've talked about this on the other episode you're on a little bit, but I want people to read.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say, really. I mean, there's just a lot of like personal experiences mixed in there, and I think that helps to make it authentic. I will say one of the best things to come of it was getting a professional editor to look over it. Cost me a lot of money because she's like an industry editor, but it was so worth it. And one of the kind of mantras throughout sort of writing it was "You're not better." Is one of the things that I had kind of going through my head is like, I don't want to convince myself that I'm a better writer than everybody else in this field, because there's not really any such thing. Better or worse is subjective. So I was just kind of like, let me open myself up to as much constructive criticism as I can get. And it was so helpful. So it was a valuable experience. I wish I had been able to make it longer, but honestly, it kind of works the way it is, like on its own.
It's fun. Do you think you'd be expanding it at any point later, like prequels, sequels, or nope? You think it's just done?
No, I don't like doing. I don't like when things jump the shark. If a story's been told, then it's been told. I will say the epilogue was actually added. It didn't used to exist in the first draft of the manuscript. I added it later because I needed to bolster the word count, but I also kind of wanted to like drive the message home. So yeah, there was that. Oh, I guess I do have one funny story. So the chapter in the Upside Down Woods, that's based on a concept that I reused from a long time ago that I was originally going to use in my webcomic. I had this like stag come into the scene, and there's this visual of like eyes coming out of its antlers, like snail stalks almost. That's based on some shit I saw when I was on shrooms in Sedona last year. So there you go. There's your last
look at it and
little fun fact. Yeah. And some of his psychosis too is based on like real stuff that I've seen and heard before getting medicated, which by the way, if you have mental illness like Thaddeus does, or like I mean, many people do, including myself. Get treatment. Do it. Ask for help. You won't regret it. I promise.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for coming on and talking about the piece of crap that we watched, and also your book.
Thanks for watching this dumb, shitty movie.
I don't know if I'm going to take any more recommendations from you in the future for that one. That was not a winner. But I'll make sure I link your both Godless and Amazon. And then if anybody wants to find you on social media, you are on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? Facebook and TikTok, or just Facebook?
No, I don't have a TikTok. I do have Twitter and Instagram, though. I'm on Instagram, honestly, more often than Facebook. I have it set up to where my Instagram photos also post to Facebook.
Both. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Tumblr. I'm on Tumblr. I'll give you my link tree because that's going to have a link to anywhere you can buy Fever Dreams. Yeah, and then also it's going to have a link to my webcomic Devil Went Down to Vegas, which is a horror comedy webcomic that's been going for a couple of years now, and it's going to be off hiatus in October. So,
oh, that's exciting. Okay.
Yeah,
well, we'll link all that, and then if anybody has any comments about this episode's piece of crap, or if they want to make recommendations, they can email us at simmfwpodcast@gmail.com, or on Instagram under the same name. You can shoot a message there. And please go out and watch shitty movies so we can talk about them together.
Yeah. Watch Video Violence too, so you can suffer along with us.
Don't do it. All right, bye.
Bye.